Okay, so I'm going to show you how to stitch some French knots. So inside your instruction booklet, you should have a French knot guide, and that'll just show you where to put them. In the case of this kit, we're literally just stitching them onto the printed dots on the background of the fabric. So it's really easy to see where those are going to go. So you should also have a stitch library in your instruction booklet, and in there you should have French knots. There's a little diagram showing you what to do and step-by-step instructions to take you through it. So that should really help you. I'm also filming this video to help you as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do French knots. So I'm going to start with this one here. So you want to have your threaded needle ready to go. We're going to come up through the fabric right on the dot that we're wanting to stitch a French knot on. We want to pull our thread all the way through. We then want to grab the thread with our non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold my needle in my right hand and the thread in my left hand. If you're left-handed, it'll be the other way around. So with our left hand, we want to hold that thread nice and tight. We're going to grab our needle in our right hand and we're going to wrap the thread around the needle. So the more times that you wrap the thread around the needle, the bigger your knot's going to be. If I'm stitching with crewel wool, I tend to only do 1 or 2 rotations around the needle. If I'm doing stranded cotton, I'll probably do 2 or 3, but it's completely up to you and how big you want your knot. So we want to continue holding this thread tight with our left hand, whilst we use our right hand to guide the needle back through the fabric into that same hole where we came up through the fabric a minute ago. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull that needle right through, so it's still holding tight with our left hand. We're going to keep pulling with the needle until we've kind of got the loop of thread with our left hand. We can't hold it anymore. You can then let go and just let the end of the thread pull into a nice little knot. So I'm going to show you that again. So we're going to come up through the fabric on the dot where we want to place our French knot. Hold the thread in your non-dominant hand, your needle in your dominant hand. Wrap once, twice, 3 times, however many you would like, around the needle. Push the needle back down through that same hole whilst holding the thread tight in your left hand. Pull the needle through until you feel the tension of it between your fingers, and then you can let go and pull it all the way through, and you've created a French knot. So once you get in the hang of doing them, they're really simple. I would suggest, if you're finding it difficult, to either have a kind of table clamp or a seat clamp that you can put your embroidery hoop on, so you've got both hands. If you don't have one of those, I would suggest the best thing to do is to have a little cushion on your lap. So while you're doing it, you can rest the hoop on your cushion. You can use both hands to do your French knot sewing. And when you push your needle back down through the fabric, it's going to be pushed into the cushion rather than into your leg, because obviously we don't want any injuries. So a nice soft cushion on your lap is sometimes helpful. So I hope that's helped you with how to do a French knot. I'm now just going to show you another one of my kits where we're using French knots in a slightly different way. So in our sunflower embroidery kit, if you go to the page that shows you the French knots, you can see that there is a cluster of French knots. So rather than having individual dots printed on the fabric for you to place your French knots on, we're just going to fill a whole section with French knots. So I'm going to show you the little photograph in the instructions, so you can see it's just lots and lots of French knots densely filling an area. So the more you place in, the denser it's going to be. It's completely up to you how many you add, where you add them, how close together you want them. But I'm just going to give you like a little demonstration of how you can cluster them together like that. What we're going to do is we're going to come up through the fabric anywhere within the section. So we're filling this whole ring with French knots. So we're going to use the same technique again to create a knot. Now this time I'm just going to place one right next to the knot I've just created. So you might like to do them kind of going round in a circle to make sure they're all kind of in a line, as it were. So you're keeping the printed line defined by where you're placing those stitches. You can then start placing more stitches underneath. And by having them so tightly packed in, it just creates such an amazing texture. And it is almost like the seeds on a sunflower. Okay, so you can see how I'm just packing them in together. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with French knots.